Okay, so good morning everyone. Can everyone see the slides? Is it visible, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, so let us start with our class today. And let us, before we go to the new topics, let us briefly look into what we have studied in the last class. So, in the last class, we were talking of what is the industrial biochemical engineering, and we talked of the two fields, like it is a combination of the industrial microbiology and the biotechnology. So, where in the microbiology part, you have to select the particular organisms. Okay, then you can select or make prepare, for example, the particular mutant, or you can genetically modify the organisms depending upon your targeted objectives, like if you are going to produce, for example, ethanol, and what are the characteristics of that, like suppose you are going to produce the ethanol, for example, the lignocellulosic source. So for example, like we know, there is a huge quantity of the agricultural wastes that are being generated, right? For example, that we see in the areas of Haryana, Punjab, when we have, especially in the winter times, when we have the crop harvesting. So, can we use those wastes, for example, for the production of the biofuels or ethanol as such? Okay, and a lot of work is being done in that aspect of, for example, we selectively genetically engineered microorganisms, so which can degrade, for example, the cellulose. So if you see any agricultural source, what is this chemical components that are present? So that three chemical components are mainly present. They are the cellulose, hemicellulose, and the lignin. Okay. So cellulose is, it's a chain of a glucose unit. So it can be broken down into cellulose is a polymer. It can be broken down into, for example, this very small glucose units, and that can be taken up by the microorganisms for production of any different biochemicals. But what remains, so if you see the cellulose, it maybe consists from 50 to 70%, depending upon the biomass or the agricultural source. It is 50 to 70%, but the rest, 50 to, for example, the 30%, they are the lignin and the hemicellulose. Okay, so lignin is like a phenolic compound. It's a polyphenol. It's a polymer of a phenolic backbone. So they are cannot be like they are not. We are not able to utilize those lignin, and they tend to be a waste. Okay. So what if we can genetically modify the organisms in such a way that the lignins can also be converted into some sort of a value-added products. Okay, so now for example, lignins are converted into ethanol and so on. So a lot of work is being done in that aspect. Like for example, we take any agricultural waste after the crop is harvested, and we use it for the production of the biofuels or any high value-added biochemicals. So this is a part for the suppose the industrial microbiology. And then we have the industrial biotechnology, which consists of the set of practices or the unit operations, like we have the reactor development. Okay, inside which we are growing, for example, the microbes under a very controlled conditions. Okay, and then after the product is being produced, we need some engineering techniques and tools of purifications and getting the high quality product. Okay, and if you see in the industrial systems, we need a very large scale system. So whatever the engineering aspects are there, that comes under the field of industrial biotechnology, starting from the reactor designing till the chemical parts where we are purifying and getting the desired targeted objectives of a particular product. So all these things can be actually classified into then upstream and the downstream processes, which you have seen, where the upstreams include several processes like the media preparation, the inoculum preparations, and the fermentation processes. And in the downstream, we are having the purification of the products. Okay, and so that we can get the desired quality of the products that are required. And then we have, for example, the effluent treatment, like for example some of the byproducts that are being produced in these processes, and that can be means that byproducts need to be treated. And as I told you, in this type of biological process, we have a very high concentration of the microorganisms or the cells that are being produced. So we need to treat those things in such a way that and they are not being contaminated to the environment. So we need to have some effluent treatment processes and techniques before we dispose of, for example, any media or the production media of the fermenter. So that's what we have seen, that if we means we can separate these two into two, upstream and the downstream processes. And upstream milk contains several classifications like medium preparation and the inoculum preparation and the fermentation process itself. Okay, so you have the initial designing of a particular media and selecting the adequate microorganisms, making it as inoculum culture, and then mixing the two, media and the inoculum together, which forms the fermentation process. So once you give, so in this inoculum preparation, you are getting the optimum concentration of the cells, and in the medium preparation, you are getting the optimum means nutrients that are there, that are suitable for the growth of that microorganism, and then you mix the two in a fermenter systems, in a reactor systems, and then you provide the appropriate temperatures and other conditions like the pH. So in the biological system, we have seen what is the difference for the chemical and the biological processes, right? So in the biological system, you need to provide, you need to maintain, for example, the pH, okay, the temperature. These two are the major parameters that need to be optimized and that need to be quantified whenever you are going to carry out any fermentation process. Okay, pressure doesn't have much effect on a fermentation, and we generally it is carried out in atmospheric pressure. Okay, so the pH, temperature, sometimes ionic strength. Okay, and in the fermentation process, the pH is actually changing with time. So there are the automated systems and control systems are there where you can monitor the different physiological changes that are undergoing in the fermenter, and accordingly we take the decision like how to proceed ahead with the fermentation. So we look into these things that and it depends upon the type of biochemicals you are producing. Okay, so we will look into those things, and these are the two main components. And in the second stage, which is a downstream process, okay, so you are getting the product and then you are purifying the products. Okay, and you are also doing the effluent treatment. So you are purifying the products to get a particular yield and the quality of that product. Okay, and then whatever the byproducts are produced, that you need to do the effluent treatment, so that for example, the simple things, the microorganisms that are being produced in the high cell concentration, we cannot dispose and throw it on the soil or water. Okay, so we need to kill that bacteria. And how do we kill those bacteria? So we simply do the autoclaving. So in the autoclaving, what we do, we heat the growth media at 121 degrees and at a pressure of 15 psi, and what it does, it kills the cells. And once cells are killed, then it is treated, and then only they are disposed of onto the land, on the soil. Okay, so this is a particular ethics that has to be followed whenever you are disposing of any fermented products. Okay, so then we looked into the chemical and the biochemical process. So I will not go into the details, but generally it is known that any biochemical process that you are developing, so it has increased safety, and that is that environmental sustainability is higher. And whatever the products that we are developing, they are actually biodegradable in nature. Okay, but in comparison, we know that most of the chemical processes are toxic. Okay, and they have a risk to the environment, like for example, some of the emission of the gases or emission of the fluids or the effluents, they might have a toxicity, and they are non-degradable. So that is the one issue. So when you dispose of any chemicals into the land or the soil, for example, they gets accumulated there. Okay, and because of the non-degradable nature. But suppose if you are throwing away, for example, the cellular debris that are being produced in the bioprocess, since on those debris they are nothing but it's a source of a carbon, nitrogen, and a different mixture of proteins, and they are generally taken up by the other microorganisms or used up. Okay, but and that means they are not accumulated in the environment. Okay, but in the case of chemical processes, some of the chemicals are means cannot be metabolized by the microorganisms. Okay, so that why they tend to remain within the soil. For example, the major problem that we are having is a plastic waste, right? So if the plastics, if you see, they are made with the polypropylene or polyethylene. Okay, so when they are thrown into the soil, they remain on the soil because we don't have the microorganisms which can eat away, for example, the PET plastics or polyethylene plastic. But similarly, if we make a biodegradable plastics through a bioprocess, suppose there are some of the plastics, that polylactic acid. So lactic acid, is something as a chemical that is being produced in the body also. So if we take a lactic acid and we polymerize, so we get a polymer called a polylactic acid, and that polylactic acid is having similar characteristics like the polyethylene. And once suppose you throw away this polylactic acid based, suppose if you are using a polylactic acid water bottles, you throw them into the soil. What happens? The bacteria can eat away that PLA based plastics. Okay, and they are tend to have so they are biodegradable in nature. So if you make plastics through a bioprocess, it is found they are biodegradable in nature. Okay, but there are disadvantages of this. For example, in the PLA, they are with the current scenario, the cost is little bit higher, but still it is used in the other parts of the world. Already it's used, PLA is being, for example, these degradable plastics or the polymers are already used in the commercial scale and in the markets and so on. So like this is a very basic differences on the chemicals and the biochemical processes. And next we will look into what are the two types of the metabolites that are being produced. Okay, and we will understand what are these metabolites and how these metabolites are produced by these microorganisms. So generally, some of the so we know that we saw that the microorganisms can produce a variety of products. Okay, and they have the powerful capacity to produce numerous products during their life cycle. So what is a life cycle? So life cycle means starting from the birth to the death. Okay, so microorganisms, we know they grow through cell division, and I'm sure by now, until you're in your class 10, I guess, or 12 maximum, everyone has studied the cell division and cell cycles. Okay, so the microorganisms have their own cell cycle, and we will just briefly look into that. What are the different stages of the cell cycles that are there? Okay, and each and every microorganisms produce the particular products or biochemicals at a different stage cycles. Okay, some may produce during their production stage, some or the growth stage. Some may produce biochemicals after they have achieved the growth. Okay, after their growth stage. So depending upon the different stages at which these microorganisms are producing their desired biochemicals, they can be classified into primary metabolites and into the secondary metabolites. So we will look into that. What is the definition of the primary metabolites and the secondary metabolites? And what are the main thing? One of the main thing that is common for both primary metabolite and the secondary metabolite production is that whatever valuable metabolic products you need to be producing using the microorganisms, it requires the growth of the microorganisms in a suitable media. So you have to provide a particular adequate media under which only this growth of the microorganisms will take place, and then it should be under controlled environmental conditions. So as we have discussed that when you are growing the microorganisms, unlike the chemical processes, you have to maintain the very sterile and aseptic conditions. Sterile means it should not be, it should be free of any other contamination. So, for example, if you have growing microorganisms E. coli, okay, and somehow there is another bacteria, suppose the bacillus is found. So what will happen? These two microorganisms will fight with each other, okay, to utilize the carbon source or the nutrients that are present in the media, okay. And suppose the E. coli is the main microorganisms that is responsible for the ethanol production or any biofuel production, for example. So what will happen? The other bacteria that is there, which is not producing any undesired products, okay, that will it will do? It will take up that carbon source and do their own metabolism, like the growing, cell division, all those things. So the E. coli, for example, will not have the adequate carbon source. So because of that, we need to have very aseptic conditions so that only, for example, a single culture or a single types of the cells are being present, so that all the carbon source that are there is utilized for the production of the of the desired chemical or biochemical as such. So if you see the like the primary and the metabolic secondary metabolites, let us look into the definition of this. So if you see, the primary metabolites are the compounds which are synthesized by the microbial cells in the growth phase. So there are different phases of the life cycle of the microbes, and the growth phase is one of the phase in which it actually doubles its cellular number. Okay, so we looked into that. What are the different stage of the of for example of phases of the growth? So there are like main three four phases, like phase, log phase, growth phase, and then it is the for example the death phase. So we will look into the different phases of the microorganisms growth, but before that we just look into what is the primary metabolite. So whatever metabolites or whatever biochemical products that are being synthesized by the microorganisms in their growth phase, okay, is what called the primary metabolites. Okay. So growth phase means whenever they are growing at a very in the exponential rate. So that means the concentration of our cells are actually rising with the time. So this graph, it shows how the concentration of the cells in grams per liter are changing with, for example, the time. Okay, and as I told you, so initially what happens when you are inoculating or when you are adding the microbes to the growth media, it takes some time to adjust to the environment, or to the conditions of the media. So generally there is a lag phase in which the cells tends to adjust to the environment, and then once it's adjusts to the environment, then it comes the log phase. Okay, so log phase is come the term comes from the logarithmic growth of the microorganisms. Okay, so in the log phase, generally you can see the concentration of the cells rapidly or expansions in the exponential phase increases with respect to the time. And then after that, the after this exponential phase, this growth rate decreases and it almost declines. So that means the growth stops, and after that we have the death phase, because when it is that exponential increase is there after a certain point of time, the carbon source or the nutrients that are there for the growth in the media is actually restricted or limited, and because of that further cell divisions and those things cannot occur, and this growth means the rate of growth of these cells actually becomes less. So means there is a concentration of the cells remains almost constant, and after that slowly there is a death of the cells, and during that what happens, the concentration of the cells actually is decreasing in the for example in the media. So this is what the different stages, or this is what a very basic that I discussed. We will look into that in more detail. So this is a very basic how the growth phase or how the growth of the microorganisms are there. So whatever the metabolites, if or biochemicals that are synthesized by the microorganisms in the growth phase is called the primary metabolite. So this is the main definition of that. If it is producing any biochemicals during this growth phase, as its numbers are increasing, so that particular biochemicals is called the primary metabolite. And if you see the some of the examples that are being produced, so amino acids, vitamins, enzymes, organic acids, and nitrogen bases are some of the variety of these primary metabolites that are produced by the microorganisms. Okay, and these primary metabolites are essential for the growth of these microorganisms, and they are produced in the logarithmic phase. So logarithmic phase means the this log phase that I talked about. Okay, and these primary metabolites are actually required for the growth of the microorganism. So this primary metabolites provides some sort of a source of energy or the factors, growth factors that are suitable for the growth of the microorganism. So because in this particular phase, the number or the numbers of the cells or the concentration of cells is also increasing, and along with that, the it is producing the metabolites which is suitable for the growth of the microorganisms, right? So so that's why these primary metabolites are actually essential for the growth of these microorganisms, and they are generally produced during this the growth phase. So this is what the definition and what are the characteristics for example, the primary metabolites. Okay, so these are the if you see what are the primary metabolite products. So suppose the ethanol acetone, lactic acids. Okay, these are some of the metabolic products, and then some of the essential metabolites such as the amino acids, nucleotides, and the vitamins. Okay, so these are being produced by the microorganisms by themselves, and these amino acids, vitamins, and nucleotides are essential for the growth of the microorganism itself. But somehow, like we know that we require the vitamins, amino acids for our body also, and they are the part and a component of our medicines for such. So we try to modify the fermentation system in such a way and that we extract these vitamins, amino acids, and the proteins that are being produced. Okay, and we try to use as additives in our medicine. So we can tune and modify our fermentation system such that this high volume of or high concentration of these vitamins are produced. And how do we do that? We just do that by maintaining the logarithmic phase, logarithmic or the growth phase of the microorganism. We during the fermentation we try to maintain in such a way that we have a maximum phase of this logarithmic phase, and if we have maintained a maximum phase of this logarithmic phase, we are able to get the higher concentration of this type of primary metabolites. Okay, and next classifications that is there is called the secondary metabolites. And so what are the secondary metabolites? So they don't play a role in the development, growth, and the production of the microorganisms, and they are generally produced at the end of the growth phase. Okay, so near the stationary phase. So once, as I told you, that after the lag phase there is a logarithmic growth, and what happens after that, so if you see in a media, like generally the bacterial culture are grown in a conical flux, for example, and everyone I hope have seen the conical flux in their chemistry labs. So in that we put for example a very small fraction of the growth media and we inoculated the cells. And initially once we inoculate, it is trying to adjust to the new media, and it is undergoing a lag phase. Okay, and then it once it's adjusted to the environment, we it's going the cell division and increasing its number, which forms the log phase. And after that it what it finds that the media concentration, that the glucose and other components that are there that are required for the growth is limited, then the concentration of the cells remains constant, so it comes into the stationary phase. Some of these microorganisms during the secondary phase releases some type of metabolites or the biochemicals. Okay, so and that is what called the secondary metabolites, and they generally don't play in the development or the growth or the reproduction, because by this stage, once it reaches the stationary phase, the multiplication of these cells, okay, and the reproduction of these cells are actually are stopped. Okay, and they are some of the chemicals that are released, and they usually accumulate during the period of the nutrient limitations or the waste product accumulations that follows the exponential phase. So as I talked about, so after this exponential phase, and so the nutrients that are they are limited. Okay, so this is that period is called the nutrient limitation period, and some of the waste are also generated. So some of these cells produces some of the byproducts. Okay, and those byproducts are released into the media. Okay, and because of this presence of these nutrient limitations and the presence of these byproducts in the high concentrations after the exponential phase, then the cells try to adjust itself and releases some of the secondary metabolites. Okay, so you can see in this graph that we have the red or the brown line, which tells you about the cell concentration. And if you see the green dots, that is actually telling you about how the concentration of the primary metabolites are increasing with time. In the case of this first case, as the growth is increasing, the concentration of the primary metabolites are also increasing. Okay, but in the case of the secondary metabolite formation, as for example, as the cell culture reaches to the stationary phase, okay, after that only the production of the secondary metabolites have started. Okay, it is not during the growth phase. So this is the basic difference between the two. And if you see, these compounds have no direct relationship to the synthesis of the cell materials and novel growth. So like you can see there is a direct correlation. So what is the concentration of the primary metabolites being produced can be directly correlated with the concentration of the cells. So when you are developing actually the mathematical equations and those expressions, it is very easy to develop. We can either monitor the growth of the cells, or we can monitor the growth change in the concentration of a primary metabolites in that, for example, the fermentation media. And both of those things are can be mathematically correlated. And why these mathematical correlations are important? Okay, so if you see, it is a simple growth of the microorganisms. Okay, but when you are growing in the bioreactor, there are several things that are going on along with the this microbial growth. There are, like I think everyone have in the departments like mechanical, chemical, and other related disciplines, pharmacy, we know the heart of the subjects like heat transfer, mass transfer, fluid mechanics, fluid dynamics, and so on. So we have to also play and those things, heat transfer, mass transfer, fluid mechanics, play a very significant role when we are designing the bioreactors. And in this particular biological systems, we also have to have, along with that, in basic three engineering principles, we also have to take into consideration these biochemical engineering aspects, like this biosynthesis pathway, as well as how these microorganisms are growing. So we have to look into this kinetics also. Okay, along with the kinetics of this heat transfer and the mass transfer, we have to look into this biological kinetics of the microbial growth. And when you combine together, it makes a very complex systems. Okay, which becomes very much difficult to design and get the final things. But we will look into those things as we move to the in the next units, that how we can combine these things and develop the bioreactors, for example. So coming to the secondary metabolites, so these are some of the secondary metabolites that are being produced. So if you see the antibiotics, alkaloids, and so gibberellins are some of the hormones, pigments. Okay, so these are some of the secondary metabolites. Then you must have by now have heard of terms called the steroids, amino acids, ascorbic acids, or any other sorts of bioorganic acids. So these are some of the products that are being generally produced. In the for example, in the secondary stages or the secondary metabolites of these things. Okay, so this part actually shows the, for example, the growth of a particular cell, how the cell division takes place. We will look into that in detail. So, and what are the mathematical expressions by which these growth kinetics are actually correlated, and how these are determined. So we will look into those things in the next class. So after the understanding this primary and secondary metabolite, let us move into and look into, for example, the one of the means pathways, or the biological pathways. So we have seen by now, I guess, the mechanisms for inorganic chemistries, for example, until 12. You have seen the pathways or the mechanisms, for example, how a particular chemical is produced. Now let us look into in the biological systems. Okay, what are the biochemical pathways or the basic mechanism steps uh, by which a particular chemical or biochemical is being converted into a desired or targeted chemicals. Okay, so as we talked about that, the main source of the carbon or the food source for the microorganisms is a very basic unit in the glucose. Okay, so glucose is a carbon ring like structure. Okay, and everyone knows that it because it can be easily metabolized. Okay, it can be easily broken down, and readily metabolizable compound. So that is why it is being used by all the types of the microorganisms or the organism as such for the production of the energy, and to carry out a different metabolic activities. Okay, so if you see in this particular, if you see this biochemical pathway, here it shows in these dark arrows the primary metabolic products that are there, and if you see in these light arrows, these are showing the secondary metabolites. So if you see, like microorganisms takes up the glucose. Okay, and it goes into the pyruvate. Okay, so pyruvate is a main main precursor for production of different types of biochemicals. Like if you want to go and produce the lactic acids or the ethanol or some sort of alcohol, butanol. So this is one of the very important precursor that the biological microorganisms produces. Okay, so they take in the glucose and they produces the pyruvate. So can any one of you tell what is the pathway it is called, starting from the glucose to the pyruvate production? Anyone? Hello? Can everyone hear, right? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so can anyone tell what is the pathway from glucose to the pyruvate? I am sure some of you must have, at least from biochemical engineering, they have studied the pathway in details, I guess, by now. So what is the name of this pathway? Anyone?
Glycolysis.
Yeah, okay, good. So the glycolysis pathway is a very basic pathway for all the sort of the microorganisms where the glucose, that is the 6 C6 means the 6 carbon ring of the glucose structure is broken down into the two units of the pyruvate, which is a 3 carbon ring. Okay, and this becomes the precursor for production of different biochemicals, as I told you, starting from the lactic acid, citric acids, ethanol, so alcohols, and so on. Okay, so this is one of the very important pathway, and it's called the glycolysis or the glycolytic pathway. And once the pyruvate is produced, okay, so it can go into the another means cycle, okay, which is called as a TCA cycle, is tricarboxylic acid cycle, where the citric acid, for example, the citrate, you can see this particular the citric acid can be produced. Okay, and along with that, some other types of the acid like glutamic acids are produced, and it can also become a precursor for different type of the secondary metabolites. Okay, so for example, if you see the pyruvate, so pyruvate can also be used for the production of the alanine, one of the very well known, or valine, or this is a very important amino acids that are there. And then triose can actually be a precursor for glycine, another very basic amino acids. Okay, or sycamide, which forms the aromatic amino acids. So because we know in our body we require 20 amino acids, right? And in for example particular medicines or any food for products, for example, that we are producing through a fermentation approach, we need to have the adequate amino acids. Okay, so we always require this production of the amino acids, and the amino acids are generally the secondary metabolites. If you are going for the aromatic amino acids and all those, so they are generally part of the secondary metabolites, and they precursors such as triose are actually being used for the production of this type of secondary metabolites. Then we have the acetate. Okay, and acetate, for example, becomes the precursor for the production of many terpenes or the steroids. Okay, and the steroids, for example, we know they are the part of our medicines. Okay, and different types of steroids and all those things can be produced using the acetate being the precursor. Okay, so acetate becomes a precursor for production of the steroids. There are many types of polyketols. Okay, then the fatty acids and so on. And we talked about the citric acids, right? So like this, there are several, for example, primary and the secondary metabolites that are produced, and each and every step, okay, for these biochemical pathways are actually monitored by different enzymes or the proteins, and so many things are there. Okay, so it is in the chemical process, we need to add a catalyst. Okay, you need to change the temperature and for example the pressure to get a desired change. But in this case, in the biological pathways, there are several enzymes, and not only one particular type. There are several cascade. So cascade means several types of enzymes are there, and there are several steps, intermediate steps that are there in the for example the production of these particular biochemicals. So if you see the overall pathway, suppose you want to produce that a particular valine chemical, so you have to provide the conditions in such a way that it starts, if you're starting on the glucose, it should go for triose, pyruvate, and it should go to the valine as a major component in the biochemical pathway. It should not go to the alanine or the acetate. So we have to maintain the conditions in such a way that we can target the production of this particular desired chemicals that we are targeting. So we will look into that, how we can do that, how we can optimize those things. Okay, but along with that, there's sometimes production of some byproducts. As we know that 100% conversion in any system, both chemical and the biochemical or bioprocesses, is not possible. So this is what I would like to highlight is that so these are the products marked in the dark arrows, which forms the primary metabolites. Okay, and there are some cases in which this time primary metabolites actually becomes a precursor for production of the any other chemicals. So that is what the called the secondary metabolites are there. Okay, so this is the overall pathway, and if we will going to break down these pathways into the small biochemical pathways, and then we'll better understand how these things are going on. Okay, so we talked about so if you come to the summary of what is this the primary and the secondary metabolites. So we started with the industrial microbiology, right, and the industrial biotechnology, which combines the production of both the fermentation units, the unit processes, as well as the microbial processes, which in which the microbial biosynthesis and all those things are taking place. So they are producing, for example, primary metabolites. So we talked about the citric acid, acetic acid, lactic acids, vitamins, ethanol, acetone, butanol. So these are all the examples of the primary metabolites. Okay, and the secondary metabolites like the formation of the biofilms. Okay, means then antimicrobials, nanomaterials, some of the biopolymers, biofloconants, biosurfactant, biometal. They are the part of the secondary metabolites. Okay, so all these primary metabolites and the secondary metabolites, they actually form together actually whatever the products or technologies that are developed. Okay, starting from in the areas of the cosmetics. Okay, or for example in the medicines, in the area of the biofuel productions. Okay, the biopolymer productions, as I talked about today, about like for the replacement of the petroleum based plastics, for example. So these are the very much the backbone of different biochemicals that are produced. So secondary metabolites and the primary metabolites are the backbone of the different biochemicals or the bioproducts that are being produced. Now let us look into what is a bioproduct and how the different bioproducts can be classified. Okay, so if you look into the definition of a bioproducts or the bio-based product, so the terminology is what we are going to use in our class. The bioproducts and the bio-based products are actually different. Okay, so bioproducts means the products which are directly coming from the biological sources, means maybe directly from a fermentation route. But the bio-based products, for example, are some of the products in which precursor is from the biological source, and then that biological precursor that we are getting is being converted into some value-added products through some chemical processes. Okay, so that is a combination of both biological and the chemical routes, and when both of them are combined, so they are called the bio-based products. So if you look into this bio-based and the bioproducts definition, so they are the production of these commercially useful products made using the biological source, that is maybe microbes or the enzymes that are being produced by the microbes for such, or some renewable biological resources, suppose the biomass that is derived from the agriculture residues, food processing, etc. So we have already talked about this example of how the biomass or the agriculture residues can be used, for example, the production of the biofuels or bioethanol. So that also is a means that is also a sort of a for example the bioproducts. Okay, and if something is directly produced from the biological source, maybe the directly microorganisms or the enzymes that are produced by the microorganisms, they are also classified as the bioproduct. And just a very simple example of different bioproducts that we are going to study, and some of the oxygenated chemicals. Okay, so like the ethanol, butanol, citric acids, lactic acid, acetic acid, they are very basic chemicals that are directly produced through the fermentations. And then we have, for example, the enzymes. Okay, so we have, for example, the different types of enzymes that are being produced, like amylase, protease, alanase. Okay, and renin and so amylase, for example, is required for the digestion of the starch, like compounds. Similarly, for the protease, for the proteins, and so there are different types of enzymes that are there. Then we have the vaccines. Okay, so whatever vaccines that we are producing is also produced from sort of our biological sources. Okay, so one of the example being the hepatitis B vaccine that is being produced. Then the hormones we have possibly talked about. I guess the insulin when we were talking of the genetic engineering and its importance in this bioprocess technologies. So insulin is something that is being produced through the genetic engineering into fermenters, because insulin is a particular biochemical is a chemical. Means if you see the if you take as a biochemical, it cannot be produced through any chemical routes. Okay, so what that is the one very interesting and advantages of this bioprocess technology is that some processes which cannot be developed by the chemical techniques, it can be done with the biological process, and insulin being one of them. Okay, so if you see the insulin production, no other microorganisms can produce the insulin other than the humans. Okay, so somehow we have, and it is very famous incident where somehow we have taken out the genes from the humans and we successfully transferred it to the bacteria, that is suppose the E. coli, and then we are able to culture it into a bioreactor and we produce the insulin, which is what we are taking it these days. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for the treatment of the diabetic patients and so. And that's why this discovery of this insulin by this biological route was a significant advancement in the science and technology. Then we have the single cell proteins. So you must have heard by now single cell proteins. They are rich in very high protein content, and it is also a source of the food. For example, for the astronauts who are in the space for the space missions, so they are mostly their food derivatives are based on these single cell proteins. So we have this type of algae, spirulina, or other proteins which becomes the basic unit of the food of the bioproducts. So these are the some of the bioproducts, and they are what we are going to study. But what are the properties, general properties of these bioproducts, and why it is being promoted in this in the current century, for example, because of the sustainability. So overall process is more sustainable compared to the chemical process, and everyone knows possibly the carbon footprint. So we are trying to reduce the carbon footprint so that our the effects of the global warming and the global emissions of the gaseous carbon monoxide, dioxide, and whatever toxic gases that are there. So overall carbon footprint should be lesser, and also the water footprint, like the means we know the water is one of the scarce things that is there. So we're trying to reduce the utilization of the water so that we have the available water for the drinking and the other activities. Okay, then we already talked about the less emissions to the environment. Okay, and they are biodegradable and recyclable. So one of the important thing is that since it is biodegradable, that means whatever the carbon backbone, or whatever the carbon that is being used by this type of products, they are not getting accumulated in the environment. So that carbon is actually going back to the environment. So like I talked about the example of the biodegradable plastic bottles. So once it's degrading and microbes are able to feed on that, so that carbon that is stuck within the in the bottles is actually being used up by these microorganisms. Okay, and suppose they are released. So microorganisms do respiration. They take oxygen and they release the carbon dioxide. So that carbon that is there in the bottles, in the biodegradable bottles, that are being used as a food source, and that carbon is released to the environment as CO2, and then it is coming back to, again in the cycle. So CO2 is taken up by the plants, and plants are producing some corns and starch, and from that corn and starch agriculture sources we are producing the lactic acid. So there is a overall carbon cycle. Okay, the carbon is not getting accumulated in the environment as it does with the suppose the petroleum based PET plastic and so. So some of the properties, another is that they generally have a very high productivity, and as I told you, use of raw materials from the local renewable or the waste agriculture residues. So if you are able to use these waste materials, then what is the advantage is you are able to overall reduce the waste generation. Okay, so this is some of the advantages of the bioproducts. And if you see the different bioproducts that we have seen in the last slide, so they can be actually classified into three types. Okay, so which is having a low value, and since it is a low value, we generally produce it at a very high volume. Okay, And then we have a classification of medium value, okay, and we produce in the medium volume. And then there is other byproducts of high value, okay, and low volume. So they are generally very highly costly products, and we'll also see into that what is the definition of these three, and what are the for example, what are the examples of those type of products. So if you go into the low value high volume products, so bioproducts which cost is actually less than our means pound is 6 per kg, which is around suppose 600 rupees per kg. Okay, they are, and they are required in the larger volumes or larger quantities, suppose in millions of kgs per year. They are termed as a low value high volume products. Okay, and what are the factors which play a crucial role in the fermentation of the low products is that the cost of the raw materials. So because when you are using this fermentation of biological routes for the production of the particular byproduct, we have to make sure that that overall systems is feasible or not. So you want to have the economics to be feasible so that it can be easily commercialized. Okay, so in that case, the cost of the initial raw materials actually plays a major role when we are selecting a particular low value high volume products, and the duration of the fermentation process, because that acts to the cost of the energy consumptions of the fermentation techniques and so on, and the overall cost of the utilities like the heating, cooling, air supply. So we talked about, we will talk also about that when you are running a fermenter, you have to have the different heating and cooling jackets are there. The air supply has to be there for the, so that the microbes can get the adequate oxygen and so. So these are the main factors which actually play a crucial role when we are selecting the for example the adequate processes parameters to make the low value high volume products. And some of the examples include the bioethanol, biodiesel, and the biohydrogen for example the biofuels, and biopolymers or bioplastics, okay, and some of the renewable chemicals like propanediol, lactic acid, and so on. So for example the ethanol, so we know that by the 2025, I guess, we are going to replace, for example, the 10% of our petroleum products with the ethanol. So whatever the bioethanol that we are suppose going to produce from the agricultural resources, so the demand for those type of bioethanol is going to be very tremendous. Okay, so we generally require the high volume products. Okay, and comparatively, the value should be as low as possible, so that overall we can reduce the cost of the petroleum products. That means if you're adding a 10% additive, it should not increase the cost of the product of the petroleum products, right? So that is the main target. So that main target when you're doing for the bioethanol production is that we should have a low value and the high volume products. And similarly goes with the biopolymers. So if you are making a biodegradable polymer or plastics, which has to be used in a daily life applications, like the polythene bags or the plastic bags if you are using, and they need to be a biodegradable one. So you need to have again the very high volume products, as well as you need to have the low value as much as possible. Okay, so these are the characteristics that you tend to have. But in the case of the biopolymers, we are yet to reach to that. The cost is a bit high comparatively, and scientific advancement and technological developments are being carried out so that the cost is now at par with the petroleum based products and so on. Okay, so these are the some of the classifications of means these are some of the product classification of low value high volume product. And let us look into in the next class, possibly we will look into the medium value and the high value low volume products, and we will look into the examples in detail, that why means these are the very high value products. Okay, and generally in the lower volume also, so they generally are parts of the different medicines that are being there. And in the medicine you require it in the very lower volumes, and they are generally of high value products. Okay, and that is where this biochemical engineering or bioprocess technology have a great advantage compared to the other chemical processes, for example. So if you see in this particular domain, the low value high volume products, still now the biological systems are yet competing with the chemical technologies that are available. because maybe we are not able to reach to the targeted cost as it is can be done with the chemical processes. Okay, so for example, ethanol can also be produced to the chemical routes. Okay, so if you take a ethylene molecule, you can take some catalysts. Okay, and then you can make a ethanol in a chemical reactor. So somehow that process is giving higher yield and the overall cost is lower, but you can see that the ethylene is being produced, so that is again some ethylene is gas or something is a very toxic gas. Okay, so conversion of that ethylene to the ethanol is like handling with the toxic substances. So this is what means we have studied in today's class, that we want to classify this into three types of products. And once we discuss these things, then we will look into the production and fermentations of this individual product. So anyone has any questions or doubts? Anyone? So if not, we will continue in the next class, and in the next class again. So I will upload these slides. Okay, with the same passwords, and everyone should go to the slides, so that in the next class we will again have a discussion like we had in the last class. Okay, and then we will move ahead with the new topics. Okay, then.